Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Broman Clash, and tonight I want to do a topic, not the recent topic because I already did that, based off of the Charleston, South Carolina church shooting, and that's still tragic. But today also marks like the 150th anniversary of a certain event that especially pertains, to my people. And you want to know what that event is? It's called Juneteenth. Basically, every June 19th. This is the 150th year since its founding. Yeah, so it started back in 1865, and the reason why that year is also significant because if you remember that like a few months, like 5 months prior, there was also the 13th Amendment has also been established. But the reason why Juneteenth is very significant, especially towards people of African descent, especially here in America, is because that is our Independence Day. It started back in Galveston, Texas, from what I've read, briefly. But yet, how the way Americans, European Americans, they have July 4th, and that represents their state of independence from Great Britain. Well, our June we had our state of independence, but it's not recognized federally. And it's very funny because when you think of Juneteenth, you think of like, what's so great about Juneteenth? Well, like I mentioned before, it's also signifying the end of slavery, the end of shackled oppression, even though the mental shackles are still there to this very day. But the reason why Juneteenth is very significant is because basically, like I mentioned before, it represents our independence. And how did it all started? Well, some say it started because of the Emancipation Proclamation, but Texas, from what I've read before, like prior to this whole, United States becoming together and still killing us to this very day. Guess what? Texas was not even considered to be a frontier. What was still considered a frontier land. It didn't have any type of allegiance, even though it leaned more towards Confederacy than towards Union. But 2,000 Union soldiers came over with the help of a general, and I forgot his name. But 2,000 Union soldiers helped say, you are free, because Texas was considered to be a Confederate state, especially when the Confederacy, especially if you know about the Confederate flag, which is pretty well known, due to it representing rebellion against the Union. And the Union, well, here's the thing, and I'm going to get it to you straight. Lincoln was not a hero to black people. In fact, he believed that black people and white people should not even be together, let alone, he said, I was in no need of trying to say that the white man should be his equal or should come together with the black man. The reason why he, did the Emancipation Proclamation was to preserve the Union, not to free, people of African descent. So honestly, he never cared. It's just that we took up in arms and we realized, you know what? We should fight back. And since we got our freedom, and it's very sad because if you let other people tell you that you have the freedom to do whatever the hell you want, that also shows the fact that you are still a slave. I know that feeling, with so-called friends who talk about, hey, you know what? No, you can't do this around me, but you can't do that around me. I want you to do this for me. And manipulation, that's just it. But yet, aside from that, Juneteenth is very significant, but it's just that it's sad that it's not, widely recognized because of the fact that, Juneteenth represents, like I mentioned before, represents, our emancipation from slavery, especially after like 5 months after the 13th Amendment, which clearly states, slavery, whether except when the person is convicted of a crime, is unconstitutional. Basically, meaning that if you don't commit a crime, putting people in slavery is considered to be, a crime itself. But, people still trying to find loopholes here and there, and they already found a loophole. So, you know what they try to do? They basically try to make up like little minor crimes, for us, and try to say, you know what? We're gonna put your we're gonna put your ass, in chains because you did this wrong, you did that wrong. Especially when they don't look at the bigger picture. And but if you really think about Juneteenth, you know, not only freedom from mental slavery, physical, well, mainly physical slavery, but the mental slavery is still there. But yet, many people decide to just say, you know what, man, I'm out. Well, they didn't say it in that particular way. They say, I am free. Well, then that means I get to go and go and live my life instead of living here in fear and living in chains, picking cotton for the very same people that would actually rape your wife and kill your children, kill you if you ever disobey them. But yet it's also like a wondrous day, especially an event, because today is June 19th, and this, like I mentioned before, this is the 150th anniversary since its establishment, ever since in Galveston, Texas. And honestly, I didn't know much about Juneteenth until I was over at the Heritage House. I'm going to give you a brief overlook on how I knew about Juneteenth, before the whole Facebook thing. But the reason why I knew about Juneteenth was actually because, I was over at the Heritage House in Brownsville. And this was pretty important to note because, you know, Miss Deans, may she rest in peace. She took, she was centered around African heritage. She was centered around, people learning their roots, learning their history, and it's beautiful. And looking at that, and looking at how the way she mentioned about Juneteenth, and I didn't know about that until she brought it up briefly, and I was like, what, like 16, 17 years old. So that's how I knew about Juneteenth, because somebody taught it to me. But I did not. I just knew about the phrase, and I knew about what was so significant about it. But I did not know, like, little minor bits and details, such as what what does it mean to people of African descent. You know, but here's another thing that's very important about Juneteenth, because like 3 years prior, you have to remember, I mentioned about the Emancipation Proclamation, which freed zero slaves. Freed zero slaves. That let's not get it twisted. It freed zero slaves. It was only used, to demoralize and try to oust the power that was part of the Confederacy, while the Union were mostly like northern states, and the Confederacy is mostly southern states. But at the same time, you have to remember that there was a civil war going on between like two factions. In it wasn't even the United States yet until this war. And then now afterwards it became the United States instead of the Confederate States of America. Maybe in some alternate timeline it's probably the Confederate States of America. But honestly, it's still. But like I mentioned before, Juneteenth is very important. But yeah, at the same time, it's not widely recognized because of the fact that not many people are talking about it. Not many people know its history, and not many people actually know the significance of this date, especially when it came right down to people celebrating the independence of their own people. Basically, this is like the Black Independence Day, while the whites have July 4th, which is named after, like, July is named after Julius Caesar, and August is named after Augustus Caesar. But June 19th, that's our Independence Day. Today marks our Independence Day, and today marks 150th, the 150th year. But it also marked the fact that some things did not change in America. Because today also marks Dylan Storm Roof, the guy that shot up, that shot, that shot up, the Charleston, South Carolina shooting, the AME. That also marked his trial, and it also marked the fact that people were trying to play off like the race card, not even the race card, the mentally ill card. They try to say like, oh yes, he's just an individual, which is a part of the fabric that made up America. Let's not play, don't let, the government, don't let, media try to sway you away from the fact that America should not even try to play holy. See, black people, we need to look at our own history and remember the fact that our history did not start in chains, and it's definitely not going to end in chains. So we need to break the chain of mental slavery. And white people, most importantly, should not even try to play it off. Should not try to play holy. Should not try to play off, try to play off like they are the most wholesome people in the world. Because those who admit that they had a flawed past, but yet choose not to let it define them and live in the present, thus prepare for the future, that's how you ultimately live. But you cannot just run away from your past. You cannot walk away from it. You gotta try to understand it, or you gotta try to say, you know what, man, I'm not gonna let you define me, which is different from running away. Because when you run away from your past, you actually let it chain you, and if you try to walk away from it, it's just gonna catch up to you. But if you try to understand it, and you realize, like, wait a minute, you may be a part of me, but you do not define me. I'm a changed person now. And the fact that, the chains of mental slavery is still ingrained in our heads is very sad. The fact that, when I talked about, white people, they should not even try to dare talk about how this racism doesn't exist anymore. They try to deny the existence of it. They try to say, like, you know what, man, let's not talk about racism. Let's talk about mental health issues. Let's talk about gun issues. Man, let's put it like this. Guns never hurt people. People killed people. Remember that old phrase? Guns don't kill people. People kill people. So basically, it's not gun control that's the problem. It's the psyche of the person that you need to evaluate. And it's very sad because it shows off the fact that, not many people are willing to look at the bigger picture, but yet they're trying to focus on the smaller fraction. And yet, Juneteenth, which is, I mentioned that today is Juneteenth. It's very significant because it also promotes, freedom from mental slavery or mental bondage. But yet people really think that shouldn't matter when it really does. Because when you try to establish yourself as a different person than who you really are, and you try to follow, society's rules, guess what? Society controls you, you don't control yourself. And that's that's just me. And that's what I think of, Juneteenth. And with that, YouTube, this is Bro Mac Clash signing out when I won. I gave my take on, Juneteenth, which is pretty significant, especially towards those of African descent. And I hope you have a great time tonight or morning, depending on which part of the world you're in. Later.